4th and goal to go to the 2. 34 seconds left to go in the ball game. This is the play right now. Takes the snap. Targeted goes in. Targeted all alone. And the quarterback keeps. Wow, what a call. Nobody touched him.
Here is Jeff, the host of the Gridiron.
They had the first 2 padded practices, right? So the pads were popping. Gotta love it. That's because the nice thing about this, obviously, and then you get, you get to see that the one-on-ones, the offensive line with the defensive line, right? The one thing with that is it's a little, because Dexter Lawrence, right? They're handling him, taking him very slowly and all and everything. So, but I mean, some of the stuff that you do wind up hearing is that the offensive line hasn't been doing too bad, not too bad at all. Of course, it also depends upon when they're going up the one-on-ones. I mean, Abdul Carter seems like he's pretty freaking special. I'm going to really love to see him. Going to love to see him on the field. But their first day of padded practice, the Giants did a lot in the run game, right? Because, I mean, with the pads on, then the offensive linemen have somewhat of a chance, maybe latch on to a defensive player, whatever. I mean, it's tough to learn a whole heck of a lot when nobody's got any pads on in the run game, right? But the first day of padded practice, they had to run heavy. Dable indicated before practice that the workout would be run heavy, and he wasn't kidding. There were 35 plays during the various 11-on-11 practice periods. 22 of those were run plays. So basically almost 2 out of every 3 plays were a run play. That is pretty much the exact opposite of how 11-on-11s without full pads generally works. You don't really run the ball too much, I would say, in OTAs or even these first few days, just because you don't want to put anybody in a bad situation, Dable said. Now, the double teams and the scoop blocks and the down blocks and the power rushes, that's when you start to be able to evaluate the offensive line a little bit more. When you're in OTAs and the first few days of practice, there's a way you want to try to practice. It's a physical sport, but you're doing things to try to eliminate some of those things when you don't have pads on. Bunch of double teams with no pads on, that's hard to do on a defensive lineman, or pick a stunt on an offensive lineman when he's got no pads on with the technique that they're having to use. Rookie Cam Scannaboo and second-year back Tyrone Tracy both broke long runs during practice. They talked about Gunner is back. While he started primarily as a return man, the 28-year-old Gunnar Olszewski does have some experience on kickoff and punt coverage. So that's where he might have to get his, because, I mean, you just can't make the team just to, unless you're like Devin Hester or something like that. Yeah, if you're that good, maybe you can make the team as specifically as a return man. But other than that, you better bring something else to the table other than just returning punts. Wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson was held out of practice. Brian Dable said nothing serious was wrong with Robinson, but that he had taken a knee to the leg on Sunday, and the Giants were giving him a day to rest. Jalen Hyatt continued to be limited after suffering a leg injury on Thursday. Hyatt worked on individual drills, but sat out of team periods. Brian Burns was full practice participant. Burns had been a limited participant on Sunday after his full-speed collision with Wan'Dale Robinson on Friday. All right. Let's see. No fights. I would say lay your money right now if DraftKings or FanDuel or whoever wants to create the prop bet that whenever the first fight of training camp happens, offensive tackle James Hudson, we're going to be talking about him in a little bit, will be in the middle of it. Oh, yeah. Hudson got into it with Brian Burns during mandatory minicamp, and there was a rep in the first couple of days where Burns wasn't happy that Hudson, playing left tackle in Andrew Thomas's absence, drove Burns to the turf. On Monday, Hudson rudely tossed Kayvon Thibodeaux to the ground during one-on-one blocking drills that necessitated a little timeout for the entire group. He banged Kayvon in the back and knocked Kayvon down to the ground. Yeah. The most notable thing from Jackson Dart's day on Monday, where there was little passing, was learning that the rookie quarterback does indeed know how to slide. Sometimes you kind of wonder. Dart showed no hesitation at Ole Miss about lowering his shoulder and taking on defenders. General Manager Joe Shane saying when the Giants drafted him that they would need to teach him how to slide. Apparently, Dart was unofficially 4 out of 6 throwing the ball. Let's see. Kay Adams was apparently at the Giants camp on Monday. She said she liked what she saw. Okay, whoopie-doo. When training camp hits, I don't have much tolerance for mistakes. That was Dable's during the mandatory minicamp. Until Monday, though, Dable had shown a good deal of tolerance. Despite numerous offside, false start, and delay of the game penalties, plus John Michael Schmidt's rough day snapping on Friday, Dable held his water. On Monday, though, a false start penalty by the offense while trying to work off its own goal line finally got Dable to lose his cool. From my vantage point nearly 100 yards away, I could not see who committed the penalty or who Dable was yelling at, but I was happy to see the Giants not simply move on the next play without some reaction from the head coach. Oh, yeah. All right. And then on the second day of practice, padded practice, injuries are starting to pop up for the Giants, who went through their second straight day of padded practices. Oh, yeah. Gotta love the injuries. The big news was the injuries. The one that could potentially be significant is the right leg injury suffered by defensive lineman DJ Davidson during the third team period. That would be a tough break for the young defender who had missed time in the 2 of the last 3 seasons with injuries. Now, apparently, he also is kind of bulked up too. What they were saying on Big Blue Kickoff Live, they said he's looking bigger. So, I mean, you got him. I mean, we got a lot of guys there. Let's not forget about Jordan Riley as well too. Right? I mean, those guys, they better start doing. They better make a name for themselves if they want to make the 53. Or even maybe make it onto the practice squad. Obviously, Malik Neighbors' injuries was to his shoulder, and it's believed that it was going to have further tests done. The very, very early word is that it's not thought to be serious. As noted, the Giants ran a second straight day of run-heavy drills. This time around, I thought the defense held up better in stopping guys from getting too far beyond the second level. But the bigger picture is that this allows for the run defense, which has not been very good of late, to work on its angles and to a degree its tackling. Now, there's no tackling. There's no picking the guy up and slamming it to the. It's like I think like Dable says, like a thud tackling. So you don't take the guy to the ground. Cornerback Deonte Banks is starting to concern me. I mentioned on X. Well, see, this is where it's a little. He had defensive pass interference called. But if you listen on Big Blue Kickoff Live, he's been a little bit stickier than he has been in the past. But there was a couple of pass interference called on him as well, too. Both were what's somewhat concerning, as he showed no instinct or awareness of the ball's location and failed to turn around and look for it. On one DPI against Bo Collins, Banks kept running with the receiver and tried to stick his arms in the receiver's way. All he had to do on that play was to recognize that the receiver was slowing down in his route to get in a position to make the catch. That should have been Banks' clue to turn around and look for the ball. Instead, he kept running and flailing his arms, hoping to maybe knock it away, and he drew a quick flag for that. He did the same thing on a pass intended for Jordan Bly. If you're the Giants coaches, you have to be mildly frustrated with Banks seemingly making the same mistakes in coverage. Jackson Dart had a bit of an up and down day on Tuesday, as he had been the case now for the last several practices. Dart has been put into the lineup in place of Jameson Winston when the offense has gotten into the red zone. On one of his final series, Dart had a 4th and goal from the 5-yard line, but they couldn't get the snap off due to some confusion getting lined up. That was followed by an ill-timed shotgun snap, which pretty much sent the Giants' offense backwards. The good from Dart was a perfectly placed back shoulder deep throw to little Jordan Humphrey for the touchdown. Dart is going to have his ups and downs, but for the most part, he is putting a lot of positive stuff out there for the coaches to evaluate. Unofficially, Dart was 2 of 5 on the day, with one drop ball by a receiver, Zach Pascal. The offensive line had at least a couple more false starts again today, which didn't please head coach Brian Daboll. Rookie defensive lineman Darius Alexander got a handful of first-team reps on the defensive line as Dexter Lawrence continues to sit out of the team drills. Alexander had a mixed bag considering this was probably his most extensive work with the first-team defense. Alexander, remember, missed the spring with an undisclosed injury, so he has a lot to catch up on. Production in practices and how he handles his responsibilities, said head coach Brian Daboll when asked what he's looking for with Alexander to show him. If you have the B gap, be in the B gap. If you have awareness on a down block, know how to take on a down block. If you're supposed to stunt on a pass rush, then make sure you stunt. If you're supposed to run a twist, run a twist. Do you know what to do? Are you doing what you're coached to do? And then can you ultimately go out there and do it at a high level, down in and down out? That's a lot easier said than done. But so with the day off, hopefully we can go a little bit of time here without hearing some more injuries. But once again, it's it's New York Giants. It's training camp. Injuries are going to happen. So, but hopefully, whatever was with Malik Neighbors is nothing too extensive.